reduction is really 470. That's the number of kids we had this year. That's a limited count this year. Anyway, you do that arithmetic, that's another $500,000. So our revenues are going to go down by $2.5 million. That's what the revenue would be. If I were recommending that we adopt the budget today, we'd be talking about $19 million. But what happens on the expenditure side? That number is the same number as that number. Carry that over, but we've got to adjust that one too because our costs have gone up. The good news is that of this federal grant money, about half of it is stuff that we spent one-time money on, and the other half really replaced funding that we would have otherwise used. Dr. Thomas spent money out of this to buy those computers. District-wide, I think we spent about $500,000, had a whole bunch of in-services that we're not going to repeat. That $850,000, however, is money that really was 2 years earlier was in the general fund budget. We lost the general fund money because of those DDOTs. We replaced it with the federal money, and now we lose the federal money unless we're going to stop hiring. There are a whole lot of special ed teachers in there, about $500,000 worth of special ed teachers. But we're required not only by conscience and by practice and by what we ought to be doing, we're also required by federal law, supplemented by state law, to provide services to kids. That $851,000 really is general fund money that saved us for 2 years. It won't save us anymore. We've got to put that back in the general fund because I don't have the federal money to provide those services with. We closed 2 buildings, and we talked about the savings of closing those buildings. We've given other personnel, in addition to the people who were affected by those building closures, we've also given, we've cut other teaching spots. We've got a business office spot. We've got 2 secretarial positions. So we made still further cuts we didn't think we could do. We made still further cuts. We have accepted salary and wage reductions, virtually all of this, because the only thing that we really cemented with our folks is the contract with the ASCII 3451. But we have reduced our total cost of wages and salaries by another $23 million. So we can reduce the 21.8 by $1.8 million from all those savings. But the retirement rate went up. And it's going to cost us $331,000 more to provide retirement for all the people who work here this year, less the people that we laid off to do these 2 savings. So $331,000, and it looks exactly the same to these people. You know, the money just disappears to Mespers, and they say thanks for. Of course, that's and.
You should point out the state sets that rate. You don't have anything to do with it.
I should point out that the state sets that rate, we have nothing to do with it. That rate, in case you need some prompting, Bert, that rate is going to be 24.46% next year. That means that for every $100 that we pay people, we're going to have to pay $24.46 to the Michigan Public School Employees Retirement System to fund future retirees' retirement. 3 years ago, that 24.46 was only 16.66. The difference between 16% and 24%, do that arithmetic, is 3%. It's increased a third in 3 years. And this isn't some little bitty, pennies kind of thing. This is a rate that affects literally half our budget. This is a $10 million payroll. Okay, we'll go faster now. Got that one. Put all this arithmetic together, we're still looking at a $1.2 million difference between revenue and expenses. The only place you got this is in personnel costs. The funding, the formula for getting the total cost of personnel is the number of people times the cost per person. That's roughly 80% of the budget. This is from the deficit elimination plan. There's last year's $28 million. There's the $14,000 we said we were going to reduce it by. This year we said we were going to reduce it by another $695,000. We're not going to do quite that well, but we're going to be in that ballpark. Next year it's supposed to be, we're going to reduce the deficit by another $850,000. that means that we're going to receive $850,000 more than we're going to spend providing kids with good service. And then it gets down, anyway, there's the positive fund balance that was approved. The problem with the deficit elimination plan is to make it work, make that previous page of numbers work out, I assumed that we were going to grow by 25 students each time we counted kids. Between the time we did this and this count, we only grew by about 13 kids. So I don't know if it's going to be 25 plus 25 plus 25. To get 200 students by the end of this 5-year plan, you would know better than I whether that's going to work. We know this one's great. It's not $78.40, it's $470 less than that, it's $73.70. These things I needed to compute the deficit elimination plan, but it doesn't really affect the numbers too much. We said we were going to cut our spending by closing buildings. I said we're going to close 4 buildings, not 2 buildings. We haven't done this. We're working on this. We've done this. We got 14% back from 3451. We met with these people today. We really can't do anything with these people because they have a contract that goes for another year. We've done this and some of this. And we're working on this. In fact, this is only a freeze. We're going to have to get money back from, this is where all the money is really. But it's not fair to whack them without whacking the rest of the employees. But this is the only place where we really significant money. So. And they're probably the closest page, well, the administrators to it. Anyway, that's that previous slide again. And here comes what I was really supposed to talk about. These are the things that we need to ask you to put on the agenda. And this is just a copy of the slide from the previous year. We need to amend current year budget. We need to adopt next year's budget. This budget needs to say that we're going to spend less money than we're going to receive. Right now, we're $1.2 million behind